our good friend Eli Gold. Did you ever think you'd say Deron Payne was going to catch a touchdown pass, Eli?
No, I never did, although, in this business, you hang around long enough, you never know what you're going to see.
Eli, before Dad gets to you, if I said 10, over or under, how many times did Dad come to the media table after a game and say he was quitting? Would it be over or under? Over or under 10?
That would be the over. He did. Heck, he did 3/4 of that number that one night up in Wichita, Kansas. So
okay.
No, it's
way over.
But it's all right. But he's a dandy. Your dad is.
So way over. All right, Dad.
Eli is great. He was great with me and so easy to get along with. And I tried. I was hard. I wasn't hard to get along with him, but I was different. Eli, in a game, I don't think people appreciate people like you. They always not criticize you, but people criticize all announcers and everything. You're fixing to go into a game against a Louisville team that you don't really know. You're studying them, I know. You got an Alabama team that in the backfield is new. A lot of them are new. Offense is different. And your voice has to be in 15 seconds, 10 seconds. You have to give 10-second, 15-second thoughts. Talk a little bit to our listeners about that, because I don't think our listeners understand that.
Well, it's a little easier for me than it is for the color man, who truly has to see what has gone on. He has to analyze it. He has to explain it to the listeners, and then get out and be done so the play-by-play guy can set up the next play. It's different on television, where the color man can talk right up to the next snap, because you can see who's wide to the right, who's wide to the left, who the running backs are, what formation they're in. So you can talk as the color man right up until when the play-by-play guy must speak. But on radio, it's a little different. We all talk in sound bites. I get in, call the play, then I have to get out so that the new color man, or in this case, it is a new color man, John Parker Wilson, can analyze and talk, and then he's got about 13 seconds, because then I have to verbally explain who's wide to the right, who's wide to the left, whether the running backs are in the eye and the pistol formation, if they're in the shotgun, whatever it is. So it is difficult. It's a finite amount of time, and of course, the faster the offenses go at occasion, you really have to either eliminate the color man or really talk in a giant hurry. So it's not easy, and but you study and you work, and that's what I'm doing now. And John Parker, my new color man, we go to practice. We did the scrimmage together Saturday. We were up in the press box. Tom Stipe, our engineer and producer, set up the equipment, and we did the scrimmage as though it were a regular broadcast. We didn't necessarily do every single play, because sometimes we would stop and we would discuss among ourselves, how we were doing and how this needs to change or what have you. So it's really no different, Coach, than the players. The players go to training camp to get themselves acclimated one to the next and to get their reps in, and we do the same thing during training camp, getting ready for a broadcast season.
That's very interesting, Barry.
Yeah. How do you guys, I don't really know how to ask this question, but if, let's say Jalen is not playing well, and you got to share the story because you assume people aren't watching it on TV, without being critical of the kid, but being positive of maybe another kid come in like Tua did in the second half. How do you guys handle situations like that?
We handle it very simply. We describe. You see, this broadcast is not, we are not mainline media people, okay? Let's start with that understanding. We are not mainline journalists or media people. We are, in my case, a professional describer. And the color man is a guy who analyzes and tells you what has happened. But on our broadcast and on the broadcast of most every university, they'll tell you what happened, but they won't obviously criticize. When I do an NFL game, it's a whole different science than when I'm doing an Alabama game. Yeah, it's football, but there is a harder edge to the commentary because those guys are paid to make the play. And so it's a little different. So, we describe what we see and we let it, we leave it to the listener to do his or her own analysis of the overall who did well and who didn't do well. There was no question in the national championship game, when Tua came in, Phil Savage, my color man at the time, was able to say, obviously here are the stats in the first half, not as great offensively as they have been at times this season. So Nick Saban elected to make the change. There are ways to do it, understanding that, you're an older person talking about a 19 or a 20-year-old young man.
Yes, that.
Okay, tell us about NASCAR. How it is to, I know you're not doing as much, how it is to describe that and work in that field.
Well, like you said, I haven't done NASCAR now in 3 years. I left them. I wrapped up after 41 years with them. But again, it's the same thing. You're the broadcaster for the benefit of all 40 drivers on the racetrack, and you're bringing the action as it unfolds to the to the fans of driver A, the fans of driver B, the fans of driver X, Y, and Z. So, again, it's a descriptive situation. Let the fans, analyze and discuss who was at fault, what have you, but again, it is a professional sport. These guys are getting paid millions of dollars, so you can be far more emphatic about what happened as you saw it, but at the same time, the next play I make, the next snap I take will be my first. Yeah. So I don't have the right to criticize. I've never been there and done that. Now, John Parker or Phil, whoever, they can go a little deeper because, John Parker can say, well, the quarterback got confused there. He should have seen such and such and such and such, but wasn't looking in the right place. Well, that's not a critique per se. That's a learning explanation from a guy who's been there and done that. So he has a little more leeway to do that than I do, because the next pass I throw is going to be my first.
That's really good. That's really good listening. I enjoy listening to that.
Eli, how do you describe what Nick Saban's doing here over the last 11 years and do it justice? It almost, it's like he makes it look so easy. When I hear people, Bama fans talk and call it, they automatically got Alabama in the national championship game every year because Nick Saban makes it look so easy. How do you describe what he's been doing here?
Well, what he's done is absolutely beyond belief. It's unreal. There's almost no good adjectives to describe it. And sometimes I will say that, I'll be going over some statistic, and it's some crazy, one-sided, unbelievable stat. And I'll say, that's right, folks, you heard me correctly. He is, whatever it is, I'll say it again for emphasis to make sure people understand how remarkable a given statistic is, or just simply going through the the action last year. Not every play, certainly it seemed like, though, but we lost a lot of linebackers last year. And then every now and then I'll recap all the linebackers who have been hurt and who are out. And look, the team is still winning, and they're still winning, and they're still winning, and they're on to the national championship game. And then you can just simply say, I can't imagine anybody, I don't care if it's college, pro, whomever, who's lost this many players at the same position and have continued to excel. So, what he does is just, he just is able to get more out of these young men than they themselves think that they can give. It's just a remarkable thing to watch.
Eli, names have gotten more difficult. I can't pronounce it. I can't pronounce any of these names. Whatever. I messed it up. Nobody cares about me. But it is a deal where name pronunciation, what they want to be called, or what their mother thinks you've dismissed, is that a problem?
You know what I do? It's very simple. I ask the player themselves. It's very simple. And even then, on occasion, we've made a mistake. And, and the player has come up to me at practice and said, look, if you don't mind, because they know I'm not trying to mispronounce their name deliberately, Ross Piercebaker, the offensive lineman, his name is spelled Piercebacher, and that's how the pronunciation guides had it until he corrected everybody and said, my name is really Piercebaker. And you make that change and you go on. You don't like to make mistakes. So I've just learned that if there's ever a question, if I ever have a question, I'll just walk up to the player and say, hey, well, we have, Fidarian Mathis on the football team. And I said, what do you like to be called? And he said to me, well, call me whatever you want. I said, no. I said, what do you want to be called? He goes, well, I'll go by Phil. So when he's on the field, he's Phil, because I got that directly from him. So, but you're right, color men oftentimes, and particularly ones who are well known and respected and beloved, like when you're doing a game and you mess up the name, you personally, Wimp, people say, well, that's just Wimp. When Kenny Stabler was with us, Kenny, some of those names he just gave up, and he would not try to be funny. He would just mispronounce or forget somebody's name, and if it sounded somewhat close, everybody knew who he was talking about. And that was just Snake. That's just Snake. I mean, Salim Rashid, the great linebacker that Bama had, he rarely got that name correct. But he was close enough, or at least it sounded like it should have been Salim Rashid, that everybody said, well, that's Old Snake. And, you went with it. So there are kind of different, although everybody wants to do it right, there are kind of different parameters if you are a beloved former player or coach. When you're on the air, they kind of give you a pass on some of that stuff.
Yeah, Dad calls him
so good.
Dad calls him a booger bear. He'll say that booger bear can
exactly.
play. Yeah,
I'll give him a
nickname.
Nick Saban. Nick Saban on not after game shows particularly, or call a coach or whatever it is. For you, it probably is. He does a pretty good job of defining whatever he wants to say, I would think.
Well, he does. I mean, and he will answer whatever he wants. It doesn't necessarily matter what the question was.
Exactly right. Good point.
He uses, as any good coach, but he is particularly good at it, he uses those talk shows and his time behind any podium, whether it's a press conference, the weekly stuff, or the radio show. He will use those opportunities as he uses that as a way to get his message across. whether he's talking to the players, even though it's a talk show ostensibly for the fans, he knows that a lot of the players listen. So he'll use that as a podium to get a message across to some of the players, to some of the fans, to whomever he wants to talk. And he has some definite talking points that he wants to hit. Now, sometimes, my question will lead him directly to what he wants to talk about. Sometimes that's not the case, but he'll make sure his answer gets to what he wants to talk about. But that's a great way. I mean, those broadcasts are a great platform to speak directly to not only the fans but to the players and anybody else who he feels might need to be talked to.
Eli, what will John Parker Wilson bring to the broadcast? And how did it go about him being the selection? Did you guys bring in guys and have them try out? Just kind of talk a little bit about that.
Well, what he's going to bring is the been there and done that, as we were mentioning earlier. I've never taken a snap in the SEC. I've never taken a snap in the National Football League. John Parker Wilson has done both of those. So he brings I can study and study and study and study until I'm blue in the face, but I can never tell you what it's like to have been there and done that because I've never been there. He will bring that element to the table, plus a very strong knowledge of the game. And Wimp, as you know, when you talk basketball to other basketball men, it sounds like a foreign language to us who have never been there and done it. You coaches and former players, you see the game at a much higher level. You analyze stuff that even those of us who think we know a little bit of football, we still can't see that. You look at the game players and coaches do at a far more intense level. So he'll bring that to the table and the ability to analyze why something happened. As far as the audition process, we talked to a number of people, and there were a number of folks involved in the process of, talking to people to see who might be interested, who might not be interested. Just because you think somebody would be good, that person may not want the job, may not be available for the job, may not want to be able to dedicate the time. They may not live near here and have trouble getting back and forth to practices and so on. So once a list was established and everybody talked, 3 people were brought in for an audition. We set up in the booth, and granted, there was no game going on, but we set up video monitors, and we called a game or a part of a game off video monitors. And then, I don't know exactly how many people heard the tapes. I know my input was solicited, along with a number of others, and then the decision was made by the ultimate decision makers, who were, I'm sure, our athletic director, Greg Byrne, and Coach Saban, and our boss, Jim Carabin at Crimson Tide Sports Marketing, and whomever else. I don't know who all actually heard the tapes, to be very honest with you. And the decision was made, and John Parker was a great decision and a great choice. He is going to do very, very well. And again, he brings that quarterback element, which is very important, and he brings that been there and done that element, which I can never bring to the table.
Yep.
Eli, this has been really good. I appreciate you being on. This is stuff, that information that John Q fan has really never thought about. Really, I mean, John Q listener, I should say.
And we've been lucky, Wimp, because Snake was so good at being a color man.
Yeah.
And Phil Savage was so good at being a color man. they made it sound easy. And it's not easy, like we said when we first began, to see the play and to see it at the level that these guys see it. I mean, they see, I'll hear football guys talking about a game, and I'll have to ask somebody afterwards, all right, what did you guys just say in English, you know? They'll see it up here at this highest of high levels. They've got to see it. They've got to digest it. They've got to say it so us normal fans can understand it. And then they've got to be out in 12 or 13 seconds. Well, we're coming off 20 years, even before that, Doug Layton. But in particular, these last 20 years with Snake and Phil, we're coming off two guys who did that so very well that everybody takes it for granted. And John Parker will do very well also. It's just not as easy as these men make it sound.
Well, we're forgetting the main person that's you. And for all the years that I'm serious. Over the years that I was with you, or you were with other coaches in football and basketball, all of those years, it's always, you know, you can talk about the color man all you want to, and the color man is important, but it's you, and you've been you for a long, long time, and you have done an absolute wonderful job.
Well, you're very kind. You were along with Tommy Limbaugh. You guys were responsible for me getting this job way back when, 30 years ago, and the late Burt Bank and so many, and it's something I can never thank you enough for. It's been spectacular, and Lord willing, and the creek don't rise, we do it for a long time yet.
Oh, this is a great interview. Thank you so much.
Eli. I appreciate it.
My pleasure, guys. You have a great day.